What's going on, everybody? I'm James Young with jamesyoungphotography.com, and this is Teach Me How to Lightroom. Today we're talking about my top 3 favorite hidden features within Lightroom. Every once in a while, Lightroom kind of gets a bad rap for not being as much of a robust toolbox like Photoshop is, but today I'm going to show you some pretty cool tricks to really expand what you're able to normally do in Lightroom. They're just a little bit tucked away. Now, before we go any further, I really want to just talk about SmugMug for just a second. SmugMug is the photo storage solution that I use for my clients to A, store my photos, and for B, to sell prints. Now, the great thing about SmugMug is that regardless if you are a working professional or even if you're a hobbyist, they have packages for you, and the best part of all is that any one of the packages comes right out of the gate with unlimited storage. So I don't know if you're anything like me and you shoot a lot of client work, or perhaps you go on vacation a lot, or whatever the case is, you're gonna rack up a lot of photos. And the great part is that every one of the tiers comes with unlimited photo storage. So that means they don't put a paywall behind a package that you might want a little bit more based on the volume of pictures that you're using. So just check the link in the description down below and you'll be able to save 15% on any one of the packages, and you can start storing all of your photos right away. So here we have an image that's edited. It's pretty much done, but I want to take it to the next level. And normally I would have to use Photoshop for these kinds of things. The first thing I want to show you is Haze. Now, Haze has been around for a little over a year now and is becoming used more and more, and I'm excited to see that. But a lot of folks still don't know that this exists. And a lot of the times, folks are like me. We go through, we do all of our edits here in the basic. We adjust our tone curves. Our HSL is going out of control. We even have some split toning going on. But another way to introduce contrast into the image is through the Haze. And the reason why I'm including this in this video is because this is really, really tucked away. Now, what we have to do is literally scroll all the way down to the bottom, and under Effects, you see Haze, and here we have 0. And Haze is a really great way to either A, reduce visual obstructions like fog or haze, like literally what the tool says, or introduce contrast by leveraging this slider. So check this out. If I slide it to the right, it's going to introduce more and more contrast. Now, of course, this is a lot further than you would normally want to go. I'm only doing this for dramatic effect to show you what this is going to do. So let's go ahead and double click and set that back to 0. But if I wanted to add like 15 or 17 Haze there, and you can see that that makes quite a bit of difference. If I go off and I turn that back on, it does make a difference. So you're really going to want to start adding Haze to your workflow when applicable. Of course, don't crank it all the way to the right. And then I don't really ever see any cases where sliding the Haze to the left and adding haze is going to be a good option. Maybe you know, I don't. Now, moving on to number 2, this is where we start getting a little more advanced. And really, the more people I talk to about Lightroom, I'm constantly educating people on this, which is why I wanted to make a video about these features. So in addition to dehazing, what this photo can really use is a stronger emphasis on this sky. This sky is not blown out, and there's data that we can recover, but if we crank the exposure way down, well, it ruins the bottom half of the photo, which really is the subject, so we don't want to do that. So let's add a graduated filter. You can click the toolbar here, or you can press M to turn that module on. I already have some settings dialed in here. We're dropping the exposure down a little bit. We're dropping our highlights down quite a bit. And let's just drag our gradient down here. I'm going to hold shift while I click down just to give me a straight line across our horizon. And there we go. So now we have a nice graduated filter. And then if we hover over the node, you can see our affected area, which does bleed into our subjects. So just for dramatic effect, I'm really going to crank down the exposure quite a bit, like perhaps minus a stop and a half there. Now this is a little bit more dramatic than I would probably do for a final edit, but again, this is for the purpose of showing you these tools. Now, similar to Photoshop, what we're dealing with here is really a mask. And in addition to dragging and dropping down this mask, we can make adjustments to it. And the way we make adjustments to it is by using the brush tool. Now, in order to get there, semi-tucked away in this right-hand panel, you can see outside of these sliders at the top, normally by default, you have edit selected. Just to the right of that, you have brush. You can also press Shift T to activate the brush. I normally just click on it. Now with this brush, you can add or take away from whatever adjustment mask you've added. In this case, we're doing a graduated filter. Now check this out. With the brush selected, I can start brushing on these settings more and more. But that's not exactly the cool thing that I want to show you. So I'm going to press Command or Control Z to undo those horrific changes. And I'm going to show you this. Once you have brush selected, you're going to have some options down here under brush where you can adjust your size, the feather or the gradation of that point, as well as the flow and the density. Now the way I use the brush is I use it in erase mode very frequently. And what I can do here is I'm just going to press spacebar and then click to zoom in, and we can just literally brush off the gradient from our subject's faces. Now this can be a bit time consuming, and I'm doing it, an extremely crude job here. And you can see when I zoom out, turn the gradient off and turn it back on, their faces are no longer affected by the gradient that we've placed. And that's all fine and dandy. And that's the first thing I wanted to show you. But really a brand new feature in Lightroom that is also tucked away is something new and completely different and very similar to a lot of features in Photoshop. So I'm going to undo all of those brush changes. Then we're going to go back to edit, and I want to show you this brand new feature. It's called Range Mask. And this tool is actually extremely powerful. So naturally it's set to off, but when you click it, you have a popover menu to select either color or luminance. Today we're only going to go over color, because check this out. Check out what you can do with this. Once you select the color, click the eyedropper tool, and you can do a few things. You're basically going to select a color sample that you only want the mask to affect. In other words, if I were to click this blue sky, it will apply this gradiated effect to only the blue sky, thus removing it from their faces. So if I go ahead and click, you can see immediately things change, and this is really cool. So if I click off and click on, you can see that there has been a substantial change done here by just clicking one time with the range mask. But I'm going to undo that and show you how this can be even more powerful. With the eyedropper selected, you can actually click and drag a larger sample size. So if I click and drag the entirety of this sky, it's going to have a lot more data to work with. And when I let go of the click, you can see here that a larger amount of the sky has been affected by this change. So now if I click off and click on, you can see that this effect does a lot more damage to the sky than just clicking one sample. Then of course you can change the amount that it's doing. You can either increase it by sliding it to the right, or you can decrease what it's doing by sliding it to the left. In this case, we're going to slide it all the way to the right so that it does bleed into the greens a little bit. But you'll notice when I turn it off and I turn it back on, it's almost not bleeding into the oranges of their skin tones at all. This is a super powerful tool. So there you go. You have 3 new tools to work with in your toolbox using Lightroom. And with every update, Lightroom just keeps on getting more and more powerful, so many more tools to where really if you're photo editing, there's almost not a reason to use Photoshop unless you're doing heavy manipulation and you need layers and things like that. But if you're doing some pretty minimal edits simply only with color and you only need a mask or 2 and a little bit of clone stamping, Lightroom is definitely the way to go. And now with more and more tools at our disposal and having light shed on those tools, you're now more and more empowered to do a lot more with Lightroom. So check it out. If you learned something today, if you enjoy these videos, appreciate these videos, please like this video. If this is your first time checking out one of the videos, it would be so awesome if you subscribe to the channel. And of course, I'm James Young with JamesYoungPhotography.com, and this is Teach Me How to Lightroom.